Hey, what's going on everyone? Today we have the patch notes or patch 14.4. We're going to be covering all the changes that are going to be happening this week and then seeing how it may or may not affect the meta. So in the summary, they have a lot of buffs here. They got Cypher, Golden Ox, Divinicore, Nitro, Techie, and Vanguard. I'm probably most excited for both the Nitro and the Techie buffs out of these listed so far. Kog'Maw, Illaoi, Shyvana, Skarner, Elise, Zeri, Misfortune, Renekton, and Kabuko also getting buffs, and then Bastion Emblem, Marksman Emblem, Dynamo Emblem, and Slayer Emblem all getting a little hit. But if we look at the item stats, a few of those emblems here are a little bit on the lower end. I sorted by highest average placement here. And then they're buffing 13 different augments, nerfing Nefiri, Twist of Fate, Brand, Nico, Vex, pretty much all the problematic champions right now. And then we have Manazane, nerfing 11 augments, and then adjusting cybernetic implants and hostile takeover. Let's get into what these exact changes are, but first we have the rotating shop. Couple new chibis, looks like 2 new booms as well. They're also bringing in Remix Rumble. I know a lot of people are excited about that, and they updated the pool sizes for that to make it a little bit more fun compared to what they did with the previous revivals. They're also simplifying cosmetic tiers to make it more straightforward and consistent. But now let's move on into the system changes. We have the PvE loot. Generally lowered the amount of loot you get from PvE rounds. Scuttle Puddle and Crab Rave no longer add 2 additional components. That's pretty important to think about because previously we always knew that both these crab things always gave a ton more loot. But let's see what they wrote about here because that's actually like a pretty big change that I have not heard about till now. Essentially, hacks are providing enough loot to typically fully itemize 2 carries and a primary tank. We've since lowered the amount of total loot you get, but we're still seeing games have ever so slightly too much on average. I kind of agree there. I feel like there's too many resources right now. And with the loot changes, we can expect to see 1 less item component, and in a few cases, 1 less silver or blue loot orb. This is a small buff to solo carry comps, small nerf to comps that itemize a ton of different units. Next up we have is Black Market Augment Hack. Slightly increase the odds of Black Market Augment Hack appearing on 2-1. These are always like the weird ones, and I guess they just want them to see a bit more play. Next one up we have is Golem Armory. Gold Generator Golem has been replaced with the RNG Golem. This Golem is equipped with a random emblem, a random artifact, and a random radiant item. Holy cow, that could either be really good or really bad. I guess that's why it's called the RNG Golem. I personally never took the Gold Generator Golem. They're saying up here that it was almost always the wrong pick, so that's kind of funny. I guess if you need to high roll, like let's say you're going 8th for sure, or maybe you're going top 4 for sure, and you want to try to get a first, just take the RNG Golem, you know? If not, take the safer pick of like the tank or the attack Golem. Next up we have is eggs. Improve the power of the 13-turn egg. A lot of people just take this for fun. I think it's a big mistake to take this. Only take this if you're really high in HP. And you would think that they would keep this the same because I guarantee you people are overtaking this already just because it's more fun to take the bigger egg. I'm guilty of that too. Large changes. Let's look at the traits. Cypher, AD, and AP after cash out is going to be buffed up by 5% at 4 and 5 Cypher. Doesn't really change that much. It's kind of more encouraging you to use the Cypher after you cash out rather than using it and then pivoting into something else. Divinicore bonus stats is going to be bumped up at 5, 6, and 7 Divinicore, but they're nerfing Vex to compensate for that as we saw in the preview. We'll have to see what they cook up there with the other changes before we make judgments to that. Golden Ox base damage amp. This one is going to be buffed up at 4 and 6 Golden Ox. I know this was a popular comp, but it's like a super high roll comp. If you have a good start for it, it's really good. If you don't, it's not that great. On average, I think it averages a little bit below average, so the buff makes perfect sense there for me. Do they say anything about it here? Not really. They talk about Divinicore and Nitro. Speaking of Nitro, the Chrome is going to be buffed up at 3-star units. They're going to give 7 instead of 6, and then if you have a 4-star, it's going to give 25 instead of 12. I've not actually gotten a 4-star 1-cost unit yet this set. Before, you got it from the Anomaly. In a previous set, there were so many other ways to get it, but now it's actually quite hard. 4-piece laser damage. This one's going to be bumped up a bunch at all levels. It's actually quite sizable. Let's see what they say about the Nitro thing. It's rarely worth fielding past building your robot faster. Yeah, that's very true. We're tinkering with the bot's lasers to make the lasers show more than just for show. So I guess they don't really want you to replace that one Nitro that doesn't quite fit whatever synergies you're having right now. In the late game, it's still probably going to be good to take him out for some legendary 2-star or something like that, but in the mid to late game, it should be a lot better. Techie AP is going to be buffed at 6 and 8 Techie. Vanguard durability while shielded up 2%, and 6-piece durability bumped up 2% as well. Alright, Vomit harder for 1-cost units. Kog'Maw is going to get 3 AD. I don't think it's going to change that much. I've not even seen a hint of Kog'Maw reroll builds. I don't think the 3 AD is going to quite help with that. 2 cost units, we have Ilaoi. Armor is going to be bumped up by 5. Yeah, Ilaoi always felt kind of lackluster for some reason. I'm not sure why. Nefiri Alpha AD damage is going to be bumped down by 10%. Shyvana mana bumped up by 10. And the max mana going to be dropped by 5. That's a pretty big Shyvana buff. She's also going to gain a little bit more health, so that does help Nitro out a little bit. Skarner mana is going to be dropped down from 80 to 70 while keeping the starting mana the same. Skarner was already like a pretty good tank. A lot of people used him as like the random Vanguard you need if you need to fill out Vanguard trait over some of the other units. And it's mainly because he was like one of the tankier units for some reason, just because of the way his ability works. And they're also buffing his spell damage armor percent a little bit across the board. With the Skarner and Kog'Maw buffs, are we actually going to see some sort of Boombot reroll comp? That would be kind of fun to try out. I do want to play it. I played it in like the public beta environment when the set first came out, or was in preview or whatever, and I thought it was a pretty good time. But when the sets hit live, I haven't really found a time to kind of do this build. I don't think it's been that great. Maybe now it is though. Twisted Fate empowered card damage. This one's going to be dropped, of course. Twisted Fate was really strong in the last patch, so of course he had to take a hit. Makes perfect sense here. I think this should be enough. Is it going to be too much? I don't think so. It really depends how good he is to combine with Draven. Do they talk about it any bit here? Last patch we changed Twisted Fate to make him less reliant on Rageblade, and while that was a success, it left his card shark feeling like a card, I don't even know how to say that, but pretty much he's still going to gain a lot of AP from auto attacking a lot. His build shouldn't really change from this at all. People are doing Rageblade, Archangels, and Hextech Gunblade right now. The only thing that's changing is obviously his damage a little bit. It's going to be a bit lower, but I think this comp mainly relies on combining both Draven and Twisted Fate. Honestly, the change that's going to affect this more maybe is going to be the loot changes, because it's going to be harder to itemize both of them plus your tank, and maybe you get a little bit less gold as well. 3 cost units, we have Elise mana down by 5, so another Nitro buff there. 4 cost unit, Brand 25 out of 70 to 10 out of 70, so his starting mana is going to be nerfed a little bit. His ability now always arrives at his target after 0.75 seconds. This is a similar timing to the current throw at 4 hexes, but will be much faster for long range throws. So it now takes the same amount of distance to travel no matter how far his target is. Brand's mana lockout is now a fixed duration of 1.9 seconds. Previously it was 0.5 seconds after the missile landed, between 1.4 and 2.9 based on distance from the target. Does that make stuff like Adaptive Helm a bit worse? I'll have to test this out in some games, because I remember Spirit Shojin and Adaptive Helm on Brand were pretty much kind of equal, but maybe now it's kind of like a timing thing based on how Adaptive Helm works. Misfortune AD is going to be bumped up by 3. If they fix the bug with Misfortune, that should be pretty good too. Like maybe she doesn't even need the buff. I don't know how often the bug happens. I've seen it a couple of times, nothing like too crazy. Nico mana is going to be bumped up by 5. The weird thing about Nico is I know she's good in the Street Demon build, and Street Demons were good, but I think it's mainly Brand. I don't think Nico's actually that great of a tank. She's just kind of what you play because you have to, because if you play Brand, you need Street Demon, and therefore you need Nico. But if you compare her to the other 4 cost tanks, like, you never splash her in like some random comp, right? I don't know. I don't really think this was necessary, but we'll have to see. Vex primary spell damage is going to be bumped down a little bit at 1 and 2 star. 3 star is going to be untouched if you ever make it there. I personally have not. I think she was a little too contested to do that in the previous patch. But I think one of the bigger changes coming to Vex is something that we saw in the preview, which was one of her augments, Blue Battery, gonna get a big nerf. So I'll have to see how they adjust that, because that was like a super good combo. But they also did buff Divinicore, but normally you run Vex with around like 3 Divinicore, sometimes 4, but they buff 5, 6, and 7. So if you want to go Vex, maybe you want to go a little deeper into Divinicore now. We'll have to see there. You still need some strong frontline for her, which is kind of the challenge. Zeri AD is going to be bumped up by 5 attack speed. That's actually a ton. I think Zeri's going to be broken with this change. She's going to be one of the better 4 cost champions after this, because she's an attack speed based champion and they buffed it up by 0.5. 0.5 is a lot if you aren't familiar with TFT that much yet. Like pretty much whenever they buff a champion by 0.5 attack speed and they rely on attack speed, they become like super duper good in the next patch. So I expect the same to be happening on Zeri. It's 5 costs. We have Renekton, mana buff by 10. His ability cast is going to be changed from 300 AD and 30 and 40 AP to 100 AD and then 260 and 400 AP. Wait, what? So Renekton, he steals attack damage from the person behind him from his Dominus trait or whatever it's called, but Renekton 2-star is in a tough spot. We're improving his scaling across the board to make him a better carry when itemized. We also added a little silly big AP ratio to make his AP builds an option. Warning, they won't be good. This Kabuko change is for sure going to rock the meta. I remember watching in a League of Legends tournament, this person named Darian building Rabadon's death cap on Renekton at the end of the game as like a flex, because in League of Legends he had 0 AP scaling and he won the game anyways because they're so far ahead, and it's obviously a really expensive item. I wonder if you could do the Darian build in TFT after this change. They say it's not going to be good, but it should be fun to try out. This is actually like a pretty huge ratio. Renekton HP gain on cast is going to be bumped up at 2-star and staying the same at 1-star. Renekton double strike, 80% going to be bumped up by 5. Triple strike, upped up by 30%. Oh, I see what's going on. Like, yeah, he has this like weird different strike things, and probably the AP only affects a small portion of it. Is that what's going on? 3-star Kabuko shield no longer expires. I've never seen that before. The only 3-star legendary I've seen in one of my games is going to be Garen. I've seen others in videos, but in my own games, it's only been Garen. Let's move on into silver augments though. Adaptive strikes, Jack's shield is going to be bumped up across the board by 50. Adaptive strikes base damage is going to be buffed up by 10, 20, and 30. Not the best augments so far. I will be data checking Jax and updating you if adaptive strikes is going to be good on the meta snapshot on Friday at bunnymuffins.lol/meta. Preparations 1 HP per stack up by 10. Wolf Unchained Silas health gain going to be bumped up by around 40, and then base damage is going to be bumped up around 30, 50, and 75. Gold augments making a 10,000 IQ smarter, bronze for life livelier, flatline flatter, golem smaller, and high voltage less electric. So with 10,000 IQ, the units granted are going to be changed from LeBlanc and Echo to Yuumi and Echo. They also clarified that the gold reward is always granted after 5 rounds, and the guaranteed gold reward is being changed from 2 to 8, and then the other reward is a random component is going to be changed to a completed item anvil, so that's going to be a pretty big buff there. I thought this augment was already fine, but if they're buffing it up this much, then obviously it was pretty weak, right? Bronze for Life 1 damage amp per trait is going to be bumped up by 0.5. Bronze for Life is so weird because some sets it's so good because there are a lot of different comps that can build huge Bronze for Life boards. But in this set, there are some that can kind of take advantage of it, but nothing like in previous sets. So yeah, buffing it up makes perfect sense. Caretaker's Favor grants items retroactively if picked at higher levels than the level thresholds. Note, Caretaker's Chosen already work this way. And then Climb the Ladder 2 stats 6 to 5. I always like Climb the Ladder because it's generic to take if you have like a bunch of traits going. I didn't necessarily think it was like that good whenever I got it. Maybe there are some edge cases that they're kind of looking at. Cybernetic Implants 2 no longer appears on 2-1. Flatline execution percent down by 2%. Golem HP percent 70 to 60. AD 60 to 50. High score no longer grants Cyberboss attack speed per high score. High score rewards are slightly reduced at each high score, and then high voltage damage increase, do they mean decrease, but 25 to 15%. High voltage is the like ionic spark augment. Hostile takeover, banned and double up, no scout, no pivot, HP per turn 12 to 14, no scout, no pivot, AD and AP per turn, up by 0.5. I think this is a really fun augment if you haven't tried it yet. Pretty much you have to keep all the units you put on your board. You can't sell them or put them on your bench. So you have to be very careful when kind of using this, but it's a really fun augment if you have not tried it already. Pair of 4s, 404 to 344. Pair of 4s, 4 cost granted being changed from 2 to 3. Preparation 2 HP per stack, 35 to 45, and then Spirit Link base HP regen 6 to 5%. This was always like a really strong augment that was pretty much like auto take by a lot of people. This is going to obviously make it a little less auto take. Prismatic augments, blue battery 15 to 5 AP. I guess this is still going to be good, right? I mean, if you need a blue buff, you need a blue buff. You have to take it, right? Bronze for Life damage amp per trait up by 0.5. Same with the other Bronze for Life. Bulky Buddies 3, nerfing it by 30 health. Cybernetic Implants no longer appears on stage 2-1. By the way, with Bulky Buddies, I love combining this with like any of the tank traits pretty much. Obviously, they just use it really well, right? But I think it's best on like some of the melee carries because it gives them a lot more survivability, and you build like Bloodthirster on them. It's kind of like a pretty good combo there. Future Sight disabled, Gargantuan resolve, armor and MR increased by 30%. Hard commit grant 3 gold on selection on every stage. High-end shopping gold granted 6 to 12. That's pretty big. And shopping spree gold granted dropped from 4 to 2. Wise spending XP gain 2 XP per reroll is now going to be 3 XP per 2 rerolls, and effects only count for rerolls purchased with gold. Tooltip is going to be rephrased. So this is a pretty big nerf to wise spending. Would you even want to take this anymore? They pretty much nerfed this by what it was, this like 50%. It's going to take 4 gold to get 3 XP instead of 2 gold to get 2 XP. I don't know if I want to take this anymore. It seems kind of related to like the extra loot stuff that we were talking about before. Like a lot of these econ augments, they work really well if you have a lot more gold in your game. If you don't have that much, then you can't take advantage of it as much, right? Items, Bastion, Emblem, Armor, and MR to AP is going to be changed from 10 to 20%. Dynamo, Emblem, Damage Amp per 10 mana spent, 1 to 1.5. Marksman, Emblem, Armor shredded, 2 to 3. Slayer, Emblem, Healing increased, 25 to 33%. Mana Zane, starting mana, 15 to 5. Mana Zane AS, 15 to 10. AD, 15 to 10 as well. How was Mana Zane doing? Let's look at the artifact units. Let's sort by, let's say, average placement. Yeah, it was the second best one, and it was like really highly played. Is it just because like Brand was good though, and a lot of the AP casters were good? I feel like some of it is just because of the meta choices, right? Let's move on into the small changes though. Small like the size of the section. Anima Squad 7-piece, armor and MR being buffed by 5. Is that enough to bring Anima Squad back in action? Because none of the other units got touched, right? And Anima was not that great in the previous patch. AMP 4-piece HP 400 to 300. AMP 4-piece charge power 3 to 4. Bastion 6-piece base armor and MR 70 to 75. Dynamo 4-piece mana regen bumped up by 1. Exotech flux capacitor up by 5%. Wait, so they're buffing Zeri's best item and giving her 0.5 attack speed. Marksman 4-piece AD bonus 20 to 25. Marksman 4-piece attack speed per stack 10 to 11. And Street Demon 7-piece stats 17 to 16. I'm really curious about Anima Squad though, because I know they buffed Vanguard a little bit because you have Vanguard with Silas and Leona, but am I missing something? Nothing else got touched, and they're like, okay, I guess Alawi got buffed a little bit. I guess they have like tiny buffs to it. I don't know if Anima Squad's gonna be back. Like, I want it to be back. I think it's a pretty fun comp. But what was it averaging in the last patch? I think like a 4.65 or something like that. We have 7 Anima Squad, 4.66. That was pretty close, right? I mean, you compare it to like Street Demon, which is like the one you should compare it to. It was at like a 4.13. Like, that's a pretty big difference, right? But let's move on into the bug fixes. Always split. Fix the missing armory choice in one of the stage 3 variants of the to split or not to split hacked encounter. Big if true, stage 3, big carousel no longer has an extra unit with no item, but that's what transit is for. Anima Squad's final transit can no longer hit other boards. Hilarious. Spelling is hard. Tome carousel banner announcement is now spelled correctly. Street Demon empowered hexes now show the correct stats during the planning phase. Wait, did it not do that before? I swear it did because I moved the units around and like just to check myself. Not because I thought it was bugged, it's just because I do it while I'm bored during the round. I swear it shows correctly. Maybe I'm going crazy. Tag and Spree now correctly grants attack speed to non-street demons. 2-star 3-cost carousels now work. More like Mist Fortune fixed a bug where Mist Fortune's first wave could fire in an odd direction, so they did fix that. And then fix a bug where 3-star Kabuko wasn't doing the intended damage after his rework. And then Masterwork upgrade no longer duplicates an item when used on a unit during combat who stars up after combat. That is crazy. Do you just get 2 Radiant items or something like that? No way, right? I don't think I've ever seen that. But let's look at the top. Like previously in the last patch, we had Twist of Fate being good, we had Vex being good, we had Brand being good, and then some of the bad comps, I mean, we could just take a look at it, right? It was going to be Golden Ox, which they buffed, Anima Squad, they buffed a tiny bit. I don't think it's enough. Exotech, I think definitely is buffed enough. Vayne, I guess they buffed the Slayer emblem a little bit, so I guess it's a little bit better. Dynamo, yeah, Misfortune should be back. Like, both Misfortune and Zeri should be back in the meta, and those were kind of like the main comps. Maybe there's like a vertical Divinicore build with Zed. People like doing that a bunch. And then, of course, like Nitro should be bumped up as well. I really think Exotech is going to be the comp to look out for in this patch, but I'm wishing they did a little bit more on Anima Squad. Like, I feel like that's missing a little bit, right? But let me know your thoughts down below, what you think of the patch. What I just noticed is that they said they adjusted Cybernetics and Hostile Takeover, but I think they might have postponed that to a different patch because I don't remember seeing it over here. I guess Hostile Takeover got banned in Double Up, but maybe they're saving that for the future patch. I know 14.5 is supposed to be a little big because they're going to be doing a bunch of item reworks. If we take a look at the preview over here, they're simplifying the cosmetics, and they're also going to be changing some of the items. I think Rageblade's going to be the big one. Redemption is going to be changed into Spirit Visage. That's going to be weird. Runon's Hurricane is going to be Kraken's Fury. Static Shiv is going to be Void Staff. Static Shiv was probably one of my favorite items from like the OG TFT items in set 1. I remember building like Ionic Spark and Static Shiv on like the same backline champion based on the way they worked before. Rageblade is going to be reworked. That's probably the biggest change. Instead of just granting 5% attack speed on attack, it's going to do it per second now. Steric's Gauge is going to be changed. Guardbreaker is going to be named to Striker's Flail. And then they're introducing a bunch of new artifacts. So we definitely have like a big patch coming up in the next patch. So definitely look out for that. Let me know, again, what you think of all these changes, including these as well, down in the comments or in the Discord channel. And I'll be updating the meta snapshot and tier list on Friday as I normally do. So I do hope to see you all there. But that's going to be it for me today. Hope to see you all next time.